From Unity Church of Christianity in Houston, Texas, this is The Awakened Life with Reverend Howard Caesar. Unity is a non-denominational Christian church providing a positive, practical, and progressive approach to Christianity. Let's join the service in progress with the Reverend Howard Caesar.
There was a person who kind of shared an experience they had rather honestly, and they shared it in first person, and the person said, I feel like my body has gotten totally out of shape, so I got my doctor's permission to join a fitness club and start exercising. I decided to take an aerobics class there for seniors. So I bent, twisted, gyrated, jumped up and down, perspired for an hour. But by the time I got my leotards on, the class was over. Oh, sometimes we wait too long. Today, we begin a 5-part series called Spiritual Values to Live By. Spiritual Values to Live By. As you know, many an organization has formulated a purpose, a vision, and values. And I feel that every person really would benefit by formulating for themselves, if they haven't, a vision, a purpose, and a set of values, because it certainly lends itself to effectiveness within an organization, but it also can lend itself well to a person in living their life and kind of steering them and the quality of one's life, to kind of know your sense of purpose and the vision you have for yourself and what it is that you hold as value. Unity Church here some years ago, we all got together, the leadership, and spent hours really creating and reworking our set of vision and values and updating them. And in particular, the purpose and values we formulated in a way that it would be appropriate not only for the church, but also that whatever it is we had as purpose and values would be something that an individual that we serve in the church could really wrap their arms around and would want to take on as a purpose and as a value. So in this series that we're beginning, each week we will take one of what are 5 values that we have here at the church, and of course there are many values more, but those are the 5 that we really zero in on. And therefore these values are going to be something not only that we hold as a church as a whole, but something that you hopefully will see that is to be embraced individually as well. But before going into the values themselves, I want to share with you our purpose and consider it at least as a potential aspect of what you have formulated for yourself as your purpose in life. And so if we can have it up on the screens, we do have it now. So our purpose is who we are being in the world, right? Who are you being in the world? Our purpose is to be, we say, an empowering force for spiritual evolution, creating conscious lives and an awakened world. So again, this is our purpose as a church, and we hope that this is something that you can align with as an individual. So it starts with addressing basically the idea of who we are and what we want to be in this world. And we want to be, we say, an empowering force for spiritual evolution. And the truth is, every one of us is a force to be reckoned with, really. We have forces and energies that are moving and flowing through us because we're all creative beings. And so how we direct it is important. So we want to be an empowering force as opposed to a disempowering force. All right? We want to be evolving spiritually, moving in the right direction so that we're able to be conscious, awake, aware in living our lives. And as a result of that, because we're evolving and growing, we are contributing to the world and contributing to an awakened world because we individually are waking up. So it's to know that as we wake up spiritually, from our unconscious slumbers at times, that we are becoming an empowering force for good happening, not only in our lives, but also because we're a part of this whole. We're making a contribution to the world. It is to consciously, really consciously decide and determine that we are into our spiritual evolution. In other words, well, let me say, we all evolve physically, do we not? So we were an embryo, and then we became an infant, and then we grew a little bit more as a child, and we began to walk, and then we began to talk, and then we went into adolescence and teenage years and young adult and adulthood and so forth. And so, we were growing physically. We didn't have to think about it. We didn't have to stop and say, I think tomorrow I'm going to grow a few more inches. It was just happening, And, but on the emotional and psychological levels, there are many changes that we have to navigate our way through toward feeling competent and feeling confident in the world in which we live. We have to find one's identity. We have to have personality development of some sort going on. We're establishing our boundaries. We're making decisions and choices. We're developing, to some extent, a sense of purpose. And all of these things and more are rooted basically in one's spiritual growth and one's spiritual evolution. This cannot be done unconsciously, the same way that you just grow unconsciously from childhood to adulthood. This has to be taken on consciously. And so if the conditioning is right, an acorn becomes a mighty oak. A flower seed becomes a beautiful bloom. An apple seed becomes a tree that brings forth fruit, okay? And its consciousness does not enter into any of that. But we're different. We are about evolving, and evolving in spiritual consciousness. And therefore, we are to create conscious lives in an awakened world, rather than going through life unconscious, asleep to who we are and asleep to what is possible for us. We're waking up to what is possible for us individually and collectively. That's an important part of being on the planet and being in life. And so a value then in life is what we stand for. It's an ideal. It's something that we're going toward, really, as we're seeking to live it. We cling to it to some extent. We hold it close. We live from it as much as we possibly can. It's something we never leave behind. We try not to ever forget. We don't let it die because it's what defines us, okay? About 10 years ago or so, we had a hurricane, category 3 or 4. It was called Rita, and it didn't reach landfall in Houston or Galveston. We didn't receive the devastation that we might have, but the predictions that were coming were strong, that it was going to hit Houston hard. And so for the first time, we had Houston evacuate, and that was quite an experience. Over 2 million people hit the highways heading north and west. I remember it well, being in the car for hours and hours, just going a couple of feet at a time. Anyway, the reason I mention it is that people had to consider very quickly what it is that they valued and throw it into their van or into their car or their vehicle. And so they were deciding and going through the exercise, what is valuable to me and what's important? And so the people took their pets, and they took gathered their jewelry up, and some documents and papers that were important, and a photo album, or who knows what, but certainly themselves and their families. And all of us as spiritual beings, should have really, at some point, some degree of defined values, clearly defined, that we keep in front of us, and that we seek to deepen in us, and to develop the experience of life living from those values, because they hold us steady and strong, and they contribute to us as our spiritual life, and we want to deepen ourselves in them. We may not have perfected them, but we know what they are. On a day-to-day basis, we're seeking to live them. And so our lives, are filled with decisions and choices, and we come to forks in the road, and we don't know what to do and how to go and how to proceed. And it is said that it is much easier to make decisions in life when you know what your values are. And essentially, they help steer you, and they close the gap on some of the choices that need to be made. They help you. Mahatma Gandhi, he said, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. Very important, that string, that chain there, that we eventually get to our destiny. Martin Luther King Jr., he said, the first principle of value that we need to rediscover is this. He said that all reality hinges on moral foundations. In other words, he said that this is a moral universe, and that there are moral laws of the universe just as abiding as the physical laws. So he was saying, essentially, who we are being and what we are doing either has value or it doesn't. It's either empowering or disempowering. Author John Ratzenberger wrote, find people who share your values and you'll conquer the world together. I love that. You have the right values, bring people together, you change the world. Our first value as a church that we want to address today, and hopefully have individuals embrace, is up on the screens there. And it states, we live from our oneness with God and each other and experience the interconnectedness of all life. We live from our oneness with God and each other and experience the interconnectedness of life, all life. I recognize that I may talk quite a bit about oneness, but that's because I value it. There's nothing more important than my oneness with God, and I want that to be the most important thing for you, because out of that, everything changes. Your mind frees, you are moving towards spiritual awakening, conflict is reduced in your life, all sense of judgment and division and separation and polarity begins to drift away. You become much more of a contribution in life. I value it. It's important. It's important to you, to me, to the world. It's what drew me into ministry. It's what I have passion about. The word unity means oneness. They're synonymous. And the idea of embracing all people and making all people acceptable right where they are, you know, and helping and assisting, and from the standpoint that we're all evolving and we're all different places of evolution, but we're all one, you know. We've been there. They've been here. These here can call me up. All of that dynamic. And you can use this value and affirm it, take ownership of it in first person. You can say, I live from my oneness with God and with others and experience the interconnectedness of all life. It's a great affirmation. It's what completes us as spiritual beings. So many people have never really found God, in the sense that they may know God intellectually, they may know God as a concept, but they've always really had a problem experiencing God. And the dynamics of finding God and developing a deepening awareness and relationship of oneness is actually a process. It's a progression. It's a maturization process where we're maturing spiritually on that journey. Okay? Now, a person can get guidance and aid and assistance and strength and help from an individual, a teacher, or a book, you know, but these things can never give a person an experience of God, all right? For that, one must go it alone in a certain way. They have to go deep inside themselves. They have to reach into the innermost depths of their own being and come to know their true self, that image and likeness that they were created in. Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you, within you. You have to find it in you. There's a story that comes from ancient Hebrew teachings. And it's a story about there was a disciple, and he went to his master, and he asked, please, please, master, show me God. Let me know God. Let me be in God's presence. And over again, he would ask his master, and his master would just respond with a smile and say, yes, in time, in time. And then one day the master felt that the time had come. And so he went to the disciple and he said, I'm going to take you to our secret, sacred temple. And there are 3 rooms in the temple, but I can only take you into the first, and after that you're on your own. And if you find the way, you will ultimately find God. If not, it will have to be another time. And so he was taken into the first room, and the disciple found himself all alone in this room, and the room was empty except for a statue of Jehovah God made in gold. And so the disciple got accustomed to the room and the feel of it and felt that it was something incomplete. And he said to himself, no, this isn't it. The atmosphere is too heavy. I will go further. And so he found his way to the next room. And after he entered that room, he was able to breathe a little easier, and he became accustomed to it. And he saw that, again, the room was empty, but there was, again, a statue. And it was a statue of Jehovah God. And this time it was of crystal. And so he felt the lightness of the crystal. And he felt the lightness of the atmosphere in the room. And he said, this is more like it. But then after a while, though it was more like it, it still wasn't it. And so he began to search for the entrance into the third room. And finally he found the room. And he went into the room. And the room was empty. Completely empty. There was nobody, nothing, but he himself. And that's the story. Because that's the search for God. Eventually, we have to become one with God through the realization that God is found within us, within our own being, that we are the temple of the living God. Now, it's been said that by spiritual masters and teachers and mystics through the ages that the biggest obstacle and challenge that we all face in life is the idea of a belief in separation. That we become so hypnotized by an objective world, objective realm of life that we associate, and relate to everything and others as being separate and apart from us. And so we look out and say, there's a tree, and there is a dog, and there is a person, and the tree and the dog and the person are over there, and I'm over here. We're separate. And so in the objective world or perspective, we say one tree plus another tree is 2 trees. One dog plus another dog is 2 dogs. One person plus another person is 2 persons. But from the subjective perspective, from the spiritual perspective, we are to draw a circle around it all and see it as one life, one presence, one intelligence, one power that moves through it all and makes it all one. So from the objective view, you and me make 2. 1 plus 1 is 2. But from the spiritual perspective, you and me make 1. 1 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 1. We're all part of a circle of life. We're all part of the whole of God. And it's important for you to get that. I'm in God and I am of God. You are in God and you are of God. So we're one. All right? I am made in the image and after the likeness of God. You are made in the image and after the likeness of God. Every person is made in the image and after the likeness of God, whether they reflect that image and likeness a little or a lot. All right? The God seed is in them, and each must grow that seed within their own consciousness. And so you look at what Jesus had to say. Jesus talked about it through all the parables, this idea of 1 plus 1 is 1. He said things like, I and the Father are one. 1 plus 1 is 1. He taught us to pray, our Father. So whether you're saying the prayer or I'm saying the prayer, 1 plus 1 is 1. It's our Father. He said, I am with you always. Always means always. And if you're always there, we're always one. And if he's saying that for everyone, 1 plus 1 is 1. He said, all that I have is yours. And he wasn't talking about all the stuff he was carrying around, which was little or nothing. He was talking about everything he had within him. All that I have in me is yours. In addressing the issue of who his mother and his brethren were, he stretched forth his hand and he said, behold, my mother and my brethren. For whoever shall do the will of my Father, live these teachings I'm teaching, the same is my brother and sister and mother. He said, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for those that persecute you. Why? Because 1 + 1 is 1. We're all one. I don't care at what level a person is expressing. You have to get that. Jesus said, I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. Inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it unto me. Why do you say that? Because 1 + 1 is 1. We're all one. That's what he was trying to get across. Jesus said, you shall know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Couldn't be more clear. In the Gospel of John, you find Jesus praying a prayer. I love this prayer. I like to go back to it again and again. He's praying a prayer. He goes like this, quote, neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through my teachings, that they all may be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in thee, that they may also be one in us, that the world may believe that you have sent me. And he continues and says, and the glory which you gave me, I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one, meaning him and God. I in them, and thou in me, that they may be made perfect in one. See how important oneness is? It's where all perfection lies. It's all where movement and evolution happens. Very powerful, very powerful. And so remember, the value states, excuse me, we live from our oneness with God and each other and experience the interconnectedness of all life. There is a quote by an ancient philosopher or teacher that said, God is a circle whose center is everywhere. God is centered everywhere, and whose circumference is nowhere. That means it's all-inclusive as far as when we begin to grasp the idea that God is all there is, then we're able to draw a circle, basically, within our own consciousness that leaves no one out and leaves nothing out. All life carries the intelligence of God as far out into the universe as you and I can imagine that circle going. And whatever we look upon, we are centered in God. And we see God centered in that person or whatever that life form may be. The Apostle Paul, Scripture, it talks about the idea that we're all cells in the body of God. It's one metaphor, a way of helping us to see this idea that we're all one, of one body. The Apostle Paul tried to convey this in some of his writings in 1 Corinthians. And he said, quote, for by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. There are many parts, yet one body. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. Paul is saying essentially, we cannot say to anyone who looks different, thinks different, worships different, or is any way different, I have no need of you. Because we're all part of one body. And that's the truth. We're all part of the one God life. St. Augustine wrote, whatever you perceive by fleshly sense, you perceive only in part, not knowing the whole of which those things are but parts. And it's what I believed then, and it's what I believe now. It's what I put out there as one of the messages to the Houston community, is the idea of oneness. That basically when one person makes a stride forward, we all do. And the quality of one's life really hinges upon the realization that every person, I'm a part of you and you are a part of me. When I was in Italy to attend the synthesis dialogues with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we brought together some authors and scientists and leaders in various parts of the world. And it was the Association for Global New Thought, of which I am a founding member of, that did this. And we were the conveners of it. And this took place in Rome, Italy. And in the opening session, His Holiness the Dalai Lama had this to say as we brought together people from different parts of the world. He said, "We are here to explore ways of serving the whole human family. To have no concern but your own life is very foolish," he said. "The great teachers didn't think only about their own, but for humanity. No discrimination. The teachings were for all people, all humanity, not this culture, not this color, not this nation. If we use religion for division, I think that not right." I loved it. That's what he said. The poet Rumi said, "In things spiritual there is no partition, no number, no individuals. How sweet is the oneness. Unearth the treasure of unity." So beautifully said. Here at Unity, we have as our first value oneness, the idea of oneness, that 1 + 1 is 1. So go to your hearts, repeat with me out loud. We live from our oneness with God. Together, we live from our oneness with God and each other, and experience the interconnectedness of all life. Go in oneness. God bless you all.
So let your soul be your pilot. Let your soul guide you. Let your soul guide you. Let your soul guide you. It'll guide you well. Guide you well. Let your soul guide you. 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 Oh, when the doctor wills to heal you, there's no more lies they can tell. No more useless information. Let your soul guide you. Let your soul guide you. Let your soul guide you. Let your tears be my tears. Let your courage be my honor. Let your soul.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. We invite you to be with us again next Sunday. At Unity, we believe that God's presence of love and goodness is everywhere, and that life is meant to be good. You can find out more about Unity and our teachings at unityhouston.org.